God told me to tell you to stay with it. Look at him. Look at somebody else. Tell them to stay with it. I know it's hard, but stay with it. I know it is difficult, but stay with it. I know you want to give up, but stay with it.
Pastor Keion Henderson is going deeper with his outlook on blending families weeks after addressing rumors about his relationship with the ex-husband of his wife.
Pastor Keion Henderson has been a hot topic lately, lighting up gossip forums, social media feeds, and rumor mills across the internet. The core of the drama? His bold request for a hefty $4 million to repair a flood-damaged church facility. Many find the sheer scale of that figure jaw-dropping, but what's raised even more eyebrows is the conspicuous absence of his high-profile spouse, Shaunie Henderson, in the midst of it all. She used to be everywhere, seen in interviews, events, and on social media, promoting her new life with Pastor Keion. Now, her silence is unsettling. Is she strategically distancing herself from Pastor Keion's request? Is she avoiding potentially negative attention? Or is it simply a matter of scheduling conflicts? Let's dissect the swirl of rumors, the context behind Pastor Keion's $4 million project, and the possible reasons for Shaunie's disappearance. In doing so, we'll draw upon posts from Lipstick Alley, scuttlebutt from fans on Instagram, and relevant news articles that have tried to piece together this puzzle. We'll also recall how Shaunie's high-profile history, particularly her complicated relationship with NBA legend Shaquille O'Neal, affects her role as First Lady of a megachurch. And in the end, we'll see how this fiasco might shape the future of Henderson's ministry and their marriage. According to discussions on Lipstick Alley, Pastor Keion Henderson launched a grandiose appeal to his congregation, seeking $4 million in donations to repair flood damage at his Houston-based Lighthouse Church. One user, who claimed to attend a few services, alleged that Henderson had initially wanted a chunk of the membership to each donate $2,100, a figure that stunned some churchgoers. Critics quickly jumped on social media, describing the appeal as money-hungry or tone-deaf, especially given that families everywhere are still struggling post-pandemic. Some suggested a wealthy pastor and his well-off spouse, Shaunie, worth millions according to various celebrity net worth trackers, should front the cost themselves. In the face of strong backlash, Pastor Keion pivoted. Reportedly, he apologized and dialed the requested amounts down drastically, from $2,100 each to far lower sums. Yet the pivot did little to quell speculation about why he needed that much money so urgently. In a recorded message, he offered a tour of the damaged church. Holding a brand new looking hard hat and wearing a spotless safety vest, he walked viewers through the property.
July 8th, we took substantial damage. If you've been following our story, you know by now we're displaced. But I don't want to start in a negative space. I want you to see over the last 15 years what God has done with and through the Lighthouse Church.
Waterlogged carpets, ruined chairs, peeling drywall, and rusted metal beams were all on display. He was basically saying, "Look at this devastation. Your help is needed." The question that sprang to many minds was, why not use insurance funds? Indeed, many congregations rely on property insurance to handle flood or storm damage. Henderson implied that insurance might not cover it all. He also attempted to assure watchers that this was a God-inspired mission, but that phrase only stirred more skepticism. Wags on Twitter joked that if God gave him such a vision, maybe God would provide more straightforward ways to collect funds than leaning heavily on a congregation still picking up the pieces from a tough economy. Others commented that if Henderson's wife, Shaunie, is truly rolling in big money from her days with Shaq and ongoing entrepreneurial ventures, shouldn't that cushion the blow? For a long stretch, one could hardly mention Keion Henderson without talking about Shaunie. After her high-profile divorce from Shaquille O'Neal, Shaunie found new love and spiritual partnership with Henderson. The wedding was lavish, featured in glossy magazines, with photos of them beaming on red carpets. It seemed every press release about Henderson's church or philanthropic event had Shaunie there by his side, offering moral support and star power. Shaunie even stepped into the role of a pastor's wife, often dubbed First Lady by church members. Observers were intrigued. Could a reality TV star from Basketball Wives transition into a leadership role at a conservative congregation? In interviews, Shaunie said she was learning, open to the journey, and leaning on Keion's guidance. She'd appear at church events, helping host charity drives, and even occasionally sharing short testimonies of her faith. Fans found it refreshing to see Shaunie's seemingly genuine embrace of a more spiritual lifestyle. But once Henderson announced his $4 million goal, something changed. People noticed Shaunie wasn't posting about it. She wasn't popping up in Henderson's official church videos either. Keen-eyed watchers say she's been radio silent on social media about the project. Some insiders whisper that she may be embarrassed about the optics. A wealthy couple apparently begging church folks for money. Others suggest she's simply busy with her own brand expansions or still managing co-parenting with her ex-husband. Meanwhile, the rumor mill churns full speed, fueling theories that an internal rift might be unfolding. Shaunie's an old hand at dealing with controversies. With an ex like Shaquille O'Neal, she's had her share of paparazzi camped on her doorstep. But this scenario is unique. It's not a typical celebrity scandal or rumors of infidelity. Rather, it's deeply intertwined with faith, finances, and the moral obligations of church leadership. Shaunie's presence, or lack thereof, could speak volumes. In her days with Shaq, she was known to handle PR storms effectively, rarely speaking out unless absolutely necessary. She strategically curated statements and occasionally leveraged public sympathy. That blueprint might be repeating itself here. The difference is, this is a church environment. People expect a pastor's wife to be physically and emotionally supportive, standing next to her husband in times of crisis. In a snippet from an Essentially Sports recap, one user commented, "Shaunie probably doesn't want to be seen endorsing a money grab," while another said, "She's playing it smart, letting the dust settle while Keion faces the backlash alone." The subtext is that maybe she's learned from her marriage with Shaq. Better to keep quiet than speak prematurely and get dragged into the line of fire. This approach, however, fuels talk of a potential rift. Some question whether their relationship is robust enough to handle heat from critics. In many religious circles, it's commonplace for a pastor's wife to be front and center. Historically, the pastor's wife might lead women's ministries, attend outreach events, or co-host conferences. If the pastor is under scrutiny, she's expected to be a reassuring presence. Given Shaunie's earlier willingness to handle public scrutiny in her Basketball Wives era, why vanish now? Some theories. Damage control. Perhaps a PR strategist advised them, it's easier for Pastor Keion to absorb the criticism alone. That way, Shaunie's brand, linked to her successful production ventures and entrepreneurial pursuits, remains untainted. 1. Personal boundaries. Shaunie might want to maintain a line between personal finances and church finances. By staying out of the limelight, she avoids questions about why she isn't chipping in more or fronting the cost. 2. Family demands. She could be consumed by co-parenting duties or personal issues. Even though her children with Shaq are older, family matters can arise at any time. 3. Private disapproval. Could she quietly disagree with Keion's $4 million request? If so, stepping back spares her from defending something she's not entirely on board with. None of these angles are confirmed, but they all swirl in online speculation, particularly on Lipstick Alley, where a user posted, "Y'all, it's suspicious how sis is MIA," garnering thousands of likes. Despite the negativity, Pastor Keion keeps forging ahead. He's posted multiple times about God's vision, explaining how a major rebuild is essential for a church battered by flooding. In a heartfelt social media live broadcast, archived by some fans on YouTube, he walked viewers through water-damaged halls, moldy carpets, and corroded beams. The heartfelt plea was, if you can't give $2,100, give what you can. Every dollar helps.
The destruction is the progress that God promised. This sanctuary has routinely been filled with thousands of people. Unfortunately, over the last couple years, we've had to turn away somewhere between 300 to 600 people per week.
He's also attempted to clarify that the initial figure wasn't mandatory, just aspirational for those who felt called. But the pivot to $21 or even $210 left critics unconvinced, with cynics labeling it a tactic to guilt the congregation. Meanwhile, staunch supporters at Lighthouse argue that the pastor simply re-evaluated the situation based on feedback and that real spiritual leaders are willing to adapt. One older member posted on Instagram, "I've seen Keion's heart. He was emotional about our church. This is genuine, not a scam." The post garnered some likes, but it's overshadowed by a wave of negative commentary. The overshadowing negativity is possibly why Shaunie, who typically champions positivity, might be lying low. Keion's fiasco doesn't exist in a vacuum. High-profile megachurch pastors like Joel Osteen or Creflo Dollar have also drawn scrutiny for lavish lifestyles and costly expansions. Some leaders get a pass from devout congregants, while others are hammered by public opinion. The result? A swirling debate about whether spiritual leaders should rely heavily on donations when they appear to have personal means. For instance, critics point out that if a pastor drives a luxury car or sports designer suits, it's contradictory to plead for big bucks from a congregation. Shaunie's silence in the face of all this might reflect a careful strategy. She's seen public outcry kill reputations before. She might recall how Shaq's brand took hits over controversies, or how Basketball Wives cast members faced backlash. To preserve her own brand, or to protect her marriage from undue stress, she might choose to let Keion handle it alone. Alternatively, she might be actively involved behind the scenes, but avoiding the spotlight to keep the narrative on Pastor Keion, who, at the end of the day, is the lead voice at Lighthouse. Another angle, Shaquille O'Neal. While no official statement from Shaq has surfaced regarding Pastor Keion's $4 million ask, fans wonder if he's silently observing from the sidelines. After all, Shaq has been open about wanting the best for Shaunie post-divorce, even congratulating her new relationship. But with the fiasco swirling, some fans whisper that maybe Shaq is relieved not to be involved. Maybe he's even thinking, if Shaunie's new husband is being hammered for money, it's not my headache. Then there's the question, could Shaq's children be impacted? Potentially, yes. They might see their mother's new spouse under heavy critique, and that could strain the step-family dynamic. If their father disapproves behind the scenes, it might create tension. But so far, none of the O'Neal kids have publicly weighed in. It's speculation at best. However, one snippet from Essentially Sports referenced that Shaq's youngest daughter posted a Father's Day message praising her stepdad, Pastor Keion, which many read as a sign of acceptance. That acceptance might be tested if controversies keep escalating. Shaunie steps forward. She could release a statement or appear with her husband in a public show of unity. If the public sees them standing side by side, passionately explaining the church's needs, it might rebuild trust. One further withdrawal. Alternatively, Shaunie might decide the best move is to remain quiet indefinitely, letting critics fade away. The risk? Her silence could be interpreted as disapproval or a marital rift. 2 Pastor Keion scales. Back. If donations don't roll in or backlash intensifies, maybe Henderson lowers the official goal or seeks alternate funding, like private donors or bank loans. If that happens, Shaunie might find it easier to re-emerge as the scandal fades. 3 Marriage strain. The internet loves speculation. If the fiasco continues, rumors of tension or a fractured relationship between Shaunie and Henderson will grow. The question is whether their bond is resilient enough to handle the onslaught. Throughout all these possibilities, the question remains, how big of a role does brand image play? For a woman who's balanced high-stakes reality TV and entrepreneurial ventures, brand management is second nature. She likely has an entire PR framework behind her, analyzing every public move. Fan sentiment is mixed. Posts on Lipstick Alley and Twitter offer a kaleidoscope of opinions. Team Shaunie, she's being cautious. She's a businesswoman who knows how damaging negative PR can be. Let her keep her peace, wrote one user. Team Pastor, Keion is an honest man of God. This is normal church stuff, only sensationalized because he's married to a celebrity, posted another. Skeptics, if they want money so bad, why not liquidate some assets? Enough with manipulating the congregation, a third user stated, referencing the idea that the wealthy couple can chip in from personal funds. Yet, the one viewpoint uniting them all is curiosity. Why is Shaunie missing from this storyline? She'd been so visible at the start of their relationship, beaming in photos, praising her new faith journey. Now, in a time of potential crisis for Henderson, she's nowhere to be found. With so many swirling questions, we're left with a suspenseful cliffhanger. Will Shaunie break her silence and stand up for her husband's $4 million dream? Or will she remain on the sidelines, preserving her brand from possible fallout? Is there a deeper conflict behind closed doors, or is this just a strategic media approach? The only certainty is that the next move could define the Hendersons' public image for months or even years to come. We've seen how one misstep can define a leader's reputation, especially in the delicate world of megachurches where cynics abound. On the flip side, a well-orchestrated comeback with receipts and transparent finances might turn naysayers into believers. What do you think? Is Shaunie intentionally distancing herself to protect her personal brand? Or does she genuinely support Pastor Keion, but behind the scenes? Should she speak out or remain quiet? And how might all this influence the relationship dynamics not just between them, but also with her ex, Shaquille O'Neal, and their blended family? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear your take on whether this is a classic PR crisis, a real marital divide, or just a scheduling coincidence. And don't forget to subscribe to Celeb Titbits for all the latest juice from Hollywood, hip-hop, and beyond. There's no telling what twists are around the corner.